Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a short agenda today. First item on the list, we asked Alexandra Hakim to join us. Al is our town social worker, just to give us an update. Kind of expanded the program. Al has been very busy doing a lot of behind the scenes things that most people don't even know she does. So we just like to get a feel for how it's going and how we can help you and what you see the needs for the town.
Okay. So I'm doing a little bit of everything, I would say. Counseling, resources, working with other government agencies like ACS, CPS, APS. So the way people find me is I feel like the younger people under 40 text me on my work phone, and then people older than 40 email me. Some people call me, but it's usually text or email, and I meet with them at the library when the room is available. I would say that not always best. I don't know how happy the library is that I'm always there, but I am. Also, it depends on who I'm meeting with, because some clients have caused more ruckus than others, right? That's been brought to my attention. There's nothing you can do. I mean, I don't know what else to do about it. So yeah, so
I'll we had made arrangements with the medical center. Is that not practical?
it's not practical because it's Tuesday during the day, and my stuff is usually definitely after 3 p.m.
Okay.
I just met during the day
Yeah.
with someone now, but with students, I meet with some students, and just after work, it's 3 hours and more for that. I think also people like going to the library because it's more anonymous, it's easy to get to, and you can just hang out at the library. So Christina asked me to just prepare a few things of what I've been noticing. I would say, so again, not many people, not many data points, but probably a big percentage of the island. There's a lot of, for me, untreated and not recognized mental health issues, like schizophrenia. Can I name what they are or no?
Yeah, it's fine. Speaking generally.
Yeah. Speaking generally, personality disorders, which are not curable, that cause difficulty, and they cause difficulty also with the police department. I work a lot with the police department. There's hoarding, schizophrenia, and then there's just like a lot of isolation, which leads to a lot of depression. And I feel like there's just a lot of untreated and maybe unrealized issues that people are having. There's no affordable psychiatrist nearby at all. So maybe Stony Brook could send someone twice a month. I don't know,
When you say no affordable, are there any programs?
I'd say there's 10 psychiatrists that I have a list of, on the North and South Fork, but they're all out of pocket and it's expensive. There's nurse practitioners can also prescribe, but everyone is out of pocket. No, I found 2 agencies with their long waiting list that take Medicare and Medicaid. But there's a waiting list for those. And they're not on the island, of course.
May I interrupt? Is there a way to just remember this from some other time and place, a way to have someone be treated by a psychologist in conjunction with a primary care physician that could do the maybe prescribing?
If they have a primary care doctor that would do that.
That would do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Are there psychologists around that are?
I've looked a lot, and I've only found 2 agencies that take Medicare and Medicaid. Everyone else is out of pocket.
Even at the psychologist level?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's prohibitive.
Mhm.
Especially.
You know, when you mentioned untreated, undiagnosed, obviously that's a real issue. Your referrals, if you had to break up the pie on referrals, where you get referrals from, we were hoping that through the medical center that there would be some, and I think you're probably not getting a lot through the medical center from either physician, you're not getting referrals. Most of this is coming from family, friends, or
Family, friends, the police department. I get referrals from the school, parents, and self-referrals. I would say, I would say a great deal is police referrals, and these are mental health issues that the person is not addressing and declines to address. And so the problems are just occurring.
I mean, obviously, that and we recognize on the Health and Wellness Alliance that one of the biggest things is the isolation during COVID and post-COVID, and probably what's happening even pre-COVID. The isolation, depression, they kind of go hand in hand. That's probably not going to be referred from the police department. These are people that are locked into their homes and just not getting out often, not doing a lot of social interaction with people. That concerns the well-being of, if you don't have family and you don't have a neighbor that has that contact with that person, these people are sitting there and undiagnosed, in need of help, and that's an issue. So I think that, as a town board, obviously being a former health educator, it bothers me that we're not able to more, and it goes for everyone. It goes from being a responsible neighbor, being a responsible family member, even if you don't live on Shelter Island, being responsible physicians. We're all in this thing together. The police department, so by the time it gets to the Shelter Island PD, it's usually there for something punitive, that somebody has violated something, and it's, and now we're referring. That is good too. I mean, I'm very glad that that's happening, because at least we're offering them some ability to correct this misbehavior that got them in some legal problem with the police department. But for every one of those, we probably have a bunch of other people not committing crimes and stuff that are not being diagnosed. And, that's, well, we need some type of sit down, maybe you and I, or with the health and wellness group, of a plan of attack where we could come up with a plan where we could try to reach out more effectively to the community at large.
Jim, maybe Alla has thought of some things, and
Okay.
we could hear,
Yeah.
a few, I don't know.
Can I just say, from the police department, I get people that have been arrested, but I get a lot of wellness checks. So
Oh, that's good. All right.
a lot of
That's
family
good.
members.
But most of those are non-punitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you might have that backwards and not the, but I would say that they're non-criminal, non-punitive. I think you're underestimating,
Closer to the mic.
I do think you're underestimating the number of social wellness calls that the police department deals with. And in a small community, people are really cognizant of people in need of social assistance, from our social worker. So I think it's far greater than you may be articulating there.
All right. Thanks, Jim.
So one idea I have, this is a pie in the sky, but there are a lot of older people on this island, of course. It's like 33%. A lot of older people are on fixed incomes. I've met several people that have reverse mortgaged their homes, which is not, so I think if there was a place for older people to move, like a retirement community, say near the airport thing, because I've met a lot of older people that don't want to leave Shelter Island, but it's just hard to get things, and the senior center is fabulous, but we can't do everything to everyone. If there was just a little enclave of seniors, and then maybe a nurse really could be there on staff all the time, something like that.
So you're talking senior housing, smaller sizes, clustered. Yeah, it's in our housing plan, and maybe we need to move it up in priority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, lots of older people are just really struggling to stay here. And then, so the younger people just leave, cover that it's affecting our schools and things, but the older people have been here and they want to stay, but they're really not doing as well as they could. So they also take on boarders or people that rent rooms, which doesn't always go there great. So definitely affordable housing is an issue I've been running up against. I've had not a lot. Percentage-wise, I've had several people leave the island because of they can't find affordable housing.
That's all age groups, Olive?
I would say it's like 50 and below
Okay.
that have left. I've also, parents from the school have reached out to me about several issues, one being bullying, which is widespread everywhere. So I'm going to work with their social emotional team at the school. I'm going to be invited to all of their meetings. And then in the spring, I'm going to do a bullying presentation that's created by Hugs. And so Gina Kraus will do the drug prevention part, and I'll do the bullying part.
Is that in conjunction with the school psychologist, a social worker, or they don't have a social worker?
They do.
They have a part-time, yeah.
Yeah. But this is, Mr. Rylock got budget approval to
Okay.
buy this, and I'll just teach it.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, the other thing, I mean, it all comes down a lot to money. There's no daycare here. People can't work because they're taking care of their grandchildren or their children. And I was researching, I'm working with some families in the family court system. There does seem to be federal grants for daycares, not for people in the family court system, just for families. And I would say food's too expensive here. Like, it's just,
Cost of living is high.
yeah.
And if you can't work because you need to watch your children and it costs you more to pay for daycare than it does when you go to work and what you earn, then it's a negative sum game.
Yeah. So
Federal grants, are you referring to specifically to Head Start type programs that are income sort of?
I'll forward to you what I
Yeah, okay.
No, but it's just vouchers, so parents can go to work. The daycare provider has to be approved, licensed. I don't think it's that onerous. A lot of people here babysit during the day. I think they could get licensed.
I know we're capital planning, Jim, but would this be something that we bring Jennifer involved with, do you think? I mean, it's a little outside of capital planning, but on the same token, it's a town need, and we do have a part-time grants writer. Would it be appropriate that we get her helping in this area? And I asked the entire town board.
I think we need to define exactly what it is what we're trying to solve, what we're trying to do, and figure out what structure we want, and then go and look to see what grants are available to help us with our perceived need.
Okay.
That's about it. I also am going to be running a caregiver support group at the senior center. Because a lot of people are caregivers here. I don't know, does anyone have any questions for me?
With respect to the opioid grant, just what you've been doing in that area.
So I helped facilitate a Narcan training for all the restaurants were invited. Most came for free, the clubs and the whole thing. I've met with Thrive East End, so I went to their location and I got information on what programs they offer and how to refer. I've referred several people to Thrive. That's, I think, basically, and I'm working with Hugs in conjunction with Gina Kraus to roll out the thing at the school.
Bullying, anti-bullying.
We have the grant from the opioid grant that the police get, you know, the majority of it, but it gets a good portion of it. Have we researched, you know, how we can really take advantage of that to our fullest?
Well, we had given the county, and I have to follow up with them to see, because it was a 70-30 split.
Right.
So 70 for a police officer to go to the Eastern Drug Task Force, and, you know, spend some time rather than 1 day a week. They'll spend a block of time. And then Allah has added a day to focus on
Okay.
anything that's opioid related. So then we gave the county some of our ideas, you know, the Narcan training, you know, seminars, you know, different things, hours for people to talk to Allah. So we'll see what they come back with as far as what they have for, you know, what they think our thresholds need to be. And because it's the first year that the county's doing this, they were collecting the information from all of the recipients of the grant so that they could try and figure out what the metrics would be for evaluating success or not.
The caregiver support at the senior center, do we have respite care where daycare for the patient, the senior that's suffering from the dementia? Do we offer that? I didn't think so. But perhaps you and Bethany, in conjunction with this, could discuss maybe, you know, especially now that we're going into budget season, where we would provide, even if it's a morning or a couple of mornings or afternoons a week, where you could bring your impaired senior and have a couple hours to breathe, you know? I don't know how large that population is, so I don't know if that's a worthy thing or not, but maybe with her help, you know, you working with, name just flew. Bethany.
And Kelly.
And Kelly, that's what I meant, yes, Kelly, sorry. You know, yeah, that would be great, Olive.
That's,
So what's your evaluation of the position in the short time you've been in? In other words, we kind of threw you into something that we knew nothing about.
Huge projects. We knew, not that we didn't know anything about, we knew that there was a need and a growing need, and that we probably weren't doing a satisfactory job as a town in addressing that need. But what you've just described in 15 to 20 minutes of where you've been, it's an eye opener, I think, to all of us.
Yeah.
I didn't want to use the word overwhelming, but you know, I'm glad that you have that extra day. I think what Jerry's trying to get to is we need to hear from you definitively. Would you be willing, if additional time could be made, to take that on? To what extent you want to get involved with, you know, working it more frequently? Because it seems like the need is fairly extensive. And now that we are in the midst of budget season, now would be the time to discuss some of these things, you know, because we want to make sure that we are taking care of the needs of all age groups. We have a huge task here. I mean, it's enormous.
yes. I think clients come into my life and leave like at a pretty nice cadence. They know when like their time has arrived. I would say it's more than a 16-hour-a-week job. I don't know exactly how much more. It's a lot of nights, weekends. It's just, it is what it is. And so like this morning, I didn't do much until 11 o'clock when I had a meeting, you know, so I guess I could have done something, but so it's definitely more than 16 hours, but I'm not sure how many hours. I would say one thing that might be helpful for me, which social workers often have, is like supervision. So if I meet with a clinical social worker 1 hour a week to pay them, it's like, and so I can bounce these issues off, because dealing with people with personality disorders, so that's someone that has a behavior that's never going to change. You know, I'm a little stuck.
Right.
So it'd be helpful to just have a more expertise. I don't know, and just like sitting with a lot of the stuff that's due to opioids. There's a lot of stuff that I can't talk to anyone about.
Sure, right.
That would be appropriate.
Chief?
I have a couple of thoughts just I don't know. Can you hear, is there anybody on Zoom?
There's, yeah, many
Yes,
people.
there are.
So,
So if you could, I guess, come up.
Even,
Bring the podium.
bring up a chair up to sit next to Ala, yeah, if you want.
We can hear him from the back of the room.
yeah, I speak.
Thanks, Julia.
So just a couple of thoughts. Look, Ala's been a great asset to the town. And I can speak on her behalf from the police department's perspective. She's been a real asset to us, and in turn, by being an asset to us as a resource, she's an asset to the community. We've met a few times and discussed certain things, and we have a scheduled meeting again for this Friday. So we work in cooperation and conjunction, and that has been tremendous for us as an agency. But so where I would go with it, Amber, and I'll probably work with you in the capital planning side, is that on that opioid grant, if Ala can give us a feel for how many of those cases that she's seeing are drug, a portion of a drug addiction or a drug use, and if 50% of that time is that, then maybe we can adjust that grant. And even if we pulled from some of the services that we were talking about providing through the East End Drug Task Force and reallocated that to another day, it might be some methodology for us to get to that other day. I don't know that you have another day in your ability to.
I would say my caseload is at a minimal amount of opioid.
Right.
I have had
Right,
few,
so-
but not.
So that may be difficult for us. And so the town might need to visit that portion if we're looking to get another day out of her. And then for clarity, are we expecting her to counsel people? And what does that truly mean? So is she a source for referral to assist a family that may need help finding another service? Or are we asking her to provide that service? And I'm not looking for an answer from the board right now, but it's something I think we as a municipality have to get our head around. Is she what you'll call a middle person that, hey, you can come see me, share some of the things, and then I'm going to redirect you? Because the redirection, based on what she said to start with, there's no resource for redirection. Right, so if we're redirecting to another level that's not there, then we're asking her to do some counseling. And I think that we have to take a deeper look at that. So what I would share with the board is I definitely from a lot of the stuff we see in the police department, first we make referrals. And Jim, I would tell you a lot of those referrals are really good people in the community that come to us and say, hey, this person needs help. Can you guys intercede? It's not non-criminal. There are criminal sides too, but less frequently. And so I think we're headed in the right direction. I think we have to continue to work with you in that role and help develop that role, because it sounds like we may need some counseling, and you have the expertise in that area. And can we rely on that on the legal end of things? And we're going to talk about some of those things on Friday.
Yeah.
So maybe back on the agenda in a month?
Yeah, I think we went into this idea with, for the most part, the job was going to be referrals. And counseling, as long as you feel comfortable, and you're talking about bullying situation, working with school, a social worker, working with people,
Training.
minor neuroses, those kinds of things where you feel comfortable and you're not critical. But when you get into psychotic behavior and you get into personality disorders, these are severe mental disturbances that you're not equipped. You then are forced to be a referral, and you need a psychiatrist for those people, those kind of credentials. And it's a long commitment. I'm not talking about coming in for a counseling session or two to deal with a psychotic behavior, which could have its roots for decades. It's a longer commitment, it's more therapy. It can possibly be use of drugs to moderate behaviors. It's a much more involved, situation. So Yeah, I like the way we're moving here. And I think we need to, just make this commitment to do the best we can with what we can handle. But the referral part of the severe cases, that when you brought up the economics of it and the distance just to get to an appointment and the monetary, to lay that kind of money out if you don't have proper insurance, that's a real problem. That's a real issue. Those are things that we're going to have to look at.
So when we kind of got you involved, we didn't have a real structure set up for how this would work. So I feel like that's something that we need to work on, is creating a structure on how referrals come in, who talks to who, and then also if there's someone that you have in mind who would be a good supervisor for you, a good person for you to speak to, because I think that's important. I think we need to kind of set that structure up and kind of formalize it so that everybody knows what's expected. So if you have any recommendations for that, that would be helpful. And then I do see a need for a space for you, like a neutral meeting ground, especially when the library starts having renovations, with certain people, it may be easier to meet in some kind of other space. So I think we need to look into that some more. You made some very good recommendations, things that BJ and I, while working on the comp plan, have also encountered. So, I think we need to kind of look at our community from a mental health standpoint in a more holistic way. What are all the things that trigger behaviors because of stress, anxiety, insecurity, and food and housing? All of those things are stressors that exacerbate any underlying mental illness that may be around. And with the pressure of COVID for the last 3 years, people are tired. I mean, you see the amount of just random aggression and aggravation in the community and in the world at large. So, we're not exempt from this. And I think that there's a lot of good things in here that we can work with. And unfortunately, mental health is not given the kind of priority in our healthcare system that other things are given. So it really is a challenge to find affordable mental health care. So we should try to look into finding some way to kind of come up with more resources if possible, because that's been something that I've always encountered throughout my history of working in skilled nursing and things like that.
In some wonderful world of we can't envision going at this table right now, if there was 30 hours worth of pay found, would you want to work that much?
We're 25 hours.
We can negotiate.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yes, I think I might anyway. All right, I think I might.
Right.
Fine.
We're clearly headed in a better direction. And I would just add, from the police department's perspective, about a year and a half ago, we added video conferencing with the Family Service League, with paid professionals that get on with people in crisis and then help direct our resources, whether that be to Stony Brook or to outpatient care at a later date. So that resource has been tremendous for us. Having you on board has been tremendous. So we're doing a much better job as a community. There's always room for growth. But I will tell you that this summer was a significant summer for us in this area. And even having the full-time paramedic was exceptional for us in people in real crisis, and having that paramedic on board was tremendous, worth their weight in gold.
What time you guys meeting Friday?
8:15.
8:15. I have a couple of meetings, I don't know, I just.
We have the health and wellness.
Could you just try to maybe give me some numbers for the budget? What do you think a supervisor might cost? I think realistically, hours you might be able to contribute.
We're making progress, which is good.
Any other questions?
We're moving in the right direction.
There's a personnel issue that I think I would like, are you available?
I'm coming for executive session. I have a couple personnel.
Okay, good, because all right, good, thanks.
Can I just add?
Yes.
For viewers at home, I'll do short-term counseling, 5 to 6 sessions is, while I'm trying to get you a full-time provider, if we can't find you one, I'll keep counseling you until we get the full-time provider, but that's.
I thought that's our prior social worker used to do like up to 6 sessions.
Sort of stopgap.
Do you use any online counseling resources? I know now there's like a lot of telehealth that people can do, but it's hard to see if people follow through and.
Yeah. I think meeting in person is just.
Oh, no, I agree, but like for as a referral, if there are no other options.
Oh, yes, I have,
Okay, yeah, that's
The two agencies that take Medicaid, Medicare
right,
are
our telehealth,
virtual.
right, yeah, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Gary, could I ask a question?
Absolutely. Julia?
Hi, I did see that the caregiver support group is on the senior calendar. And I wondered, is there an option if you're a caregiver to bring the person you're caring for to that meeting and have, somebody look after them while you're taking part in that? Or is it still just for you?
Primarily, we want to do it just for you. So if any way possible, we want the caregiver to come alone so they can have a bit of respite themselves. But no, if you have to bring whom you're caring for, then we'll find someone to engage with them.
Thank you very much.
Because I guess we have the therapeutic aides down at the senior
Yeah.
center, so we could just bring them in for.
But we really want caregivers to be
Yes, thanks.
relaxed.
Yeah.
Completely detached.
Yeah. Thanks again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next on the agenda, Judith is here to update us on the tax exemption for seniors.
So, before I go into specifics about the new tax exemption information, I just wanted to say that we've had a great response from people with the property description reports. We've had over 430 come in,
Wow.
and we only mailed it out last Friday. So thank you to everybody who's been sending it in. I greatly appreciate it. And please keep them coming. So that's thing number one. And then going on to the senior exemption, last year, the town had adopted the new numbers of 58,400, right, as the minimum amount to receive any part of the exemption. And that being said, our numbers went from having 52 exemptions to 92 exemptions. So significant increase in just the number of people, and obviously then a significant number of increase on the exempt assessed values now at this point. So those numbers went from 19 million now to 45 million. So that also being said,
That's on an assessed value, that's over $1 billion.
oh yeah, that's over 4.1 billion, or 4 billion really.
Right, so that's not a tax number, or I don't want to think that's a budget number, right?
Yes, no, that is not a budget number, that's an assessed value number.
Right.
So, Christina, would you mind putting up my little slideshow, please? Thank you. Okay. So now this is what's listed on the RP 467 form, which is the senior exemption renewal form or application. And now the senior application they take the federal adjusted gross income, and they can either add in, you add in tax exempt interest, and then you can add in Social Security, medical, and prescription drug expenses that are not that were not reimbursed, and any losses also get added in. So that's like the basic gist of how it's calculated. And if we go over to the next slide, everybody have a chance to read that? Okay. So then now, as it stands, I would take line 11, which would be that 15,000. I add in the tax exempt interest from line 2A, and then I subtract out line B for the taxable IRAs. And then I add in the remaining difference of the Social Security benefits, because you're only taxed on the 5,000, but you really collected 25. So I add that 20 back in. And so now that's how I come up to the 26,000 for the senior income. Under the new one, if we go to the next slide, it tells you that the lines 4B, 6, and 6A are options to either include or not include. And then the medical and prescriptions part can also be deducted from the income as well.
Judith, when you say option, you mean at the, mean that's our option?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, at our option. So these are options that we can choose to either continue to include or not include.
So, okay, so just to be clear, we can include or not include IRA distributions. So the thought there is maybe that that's your own money, you're getting it back?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not, and 6A again is?
Is Social Security.
Social Security,
So you're adding in the non-taxed Social Security.
right?
And currently we do add that in.
And then the medical, and medical includes also if you spend any time in a rehab or,
Yes.
Yeah,
that
okay.
would be included, but we actually don't have that option.
we don't,
We do not have that option at this point in time.
but we could,
We could,
under the new, okay.
yes, yes. So, based upon this, we need to then make the decision, do we want to just leave everything as it currently stands? Or do we want to make any changes to either remove or not, either include or not include the taxable IRA? Or do we want to not include the Social Security?
So pension money is always includable. IRA is what the option is.
Yes, yes.
I could see people who might not be eligible manipulate and roll over their pensions into IRAs. You have sizable IRA distributions
Right,
that would then come out of there. I'm just throwing that out there from.
yeah. I mean, I think the counter argument to the IRA distribution is, yes, it's your own money coming back to you, but it's also your own money that has grown tax-free for some period of time. And, I mean, it may be splitting hairs to think of it that way, but maybe not.
Do we know what the consequences of each potential option are? Like, have run numbers with including or not including?
That'd be,
To see kind of what the,
I can't say I've done it for this purpose, but from what I'm doing, when I actually do the senior exemption for the people who currently have it, a lot of the times, if I were to not include, if I were to take out the IRAs and not include that, or option to include it as income, that would be throwing them out of the senior exemption. They would not be eligible for the exemption at that point.
right. But there also is an age that you can't put into IRA anymore.
Right, but that's not part of this
No,
calculation.
but what you were saying, people who put the pension,
Oh, they could roll over the pension to an IRA.
a fixed benefit pension or a?
It depends. I mean, this
Yeah.
is very complicated.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
there's people who leave employers and then roll over pensions into IRAs.
entire race, right.
And sometimes it's sizable.
Yeah.
So can you go back a slide, Christina? I just want to, so right now, we're taking we're subtracting out currently the IRA distributions.
Yes, that does not count towards your income.
Okay,
Does not count.
Does not count, yeah.
that's as is, okay.
But your untaxed social security does count towards your income. And I find when I'm, like I said, when I'm calculating the exemptions, I find that adding in the social security, the untaxable social security benefits do put people over the threshold.
Mhm.
So,
And then go back to the next screen. You'll give this slideshow to us, right?
yes,
Yeah, that'd be-
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to noodle this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And again, sorry, Judith.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you went from 52 to 92.
52 to 92.
Okay. That letter went out? I can't remember. Did the letter go out to everybody? Remember, now we have to do an annual senior?
Yes, so that has to be mailed out in February 1st. We sent out postcards last year to every homeowner.
Right,
And the postcard stated whether you could apply for this or not.
Right.
It just said you should go to the assessor's office and apply.
yeah.
So,
And do you think that's primarily responsible for your jump here?
no.
No.
No, I think the jump in income going from the
Oh, the
30,
level, who's now eligible?
yes, going from the 37,400 now to the 50, yes.
So is it your expectation now when that letter goes out in February, another somewhat jump in people who, oh, I didn't know this, you know, we have people miss.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, definitely a possibility. Yeah. So,
Because I was getting caught up in the numbers. Is there a deadline on implementing this?
So,
well, I have to have all of this done and completed before March, or by March 1st is our taxable status date. So I do all my calculations usually in the month of February. So if we can have this done before then, that would be great.
in the old
I know
days,
how
I'd
to-
like to have all the exemption stuff really done by the end of December, because really it gets to be crunchy.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah, there's
sense.
so many other deadlines now that need to be met with trying to do the reval this upcoming year as well, that this adds another layer of, another complication.
Another database manipulation that could go wrong,
Yes,
just say.
yes.
It's a very old system that she worked.
I think the fact that we have a couple of months to work on this, and look at it, and how many people are going to take undue advantage of a system, as cited by Amber, and $58,400 is not a lot of money to live on in Shelter Island for a year. And I'd be more in favor of erring on the side of the 90% of people that would not even probably do this kind of maneuver and can't do this kind of maneuver in order to be able to live here on Shelter Island and make life a little bit more financially easy on them.
Yeah.
So my initial thing, unless we think there's some real blatant abuse of this, and where people are going to do some things that are, somehow taking advantage of the system, I would be very much in favor of, obviously, I'm not qualified, I make considerably more than that, so I'm not speaking as a senior citizen who would benefit from this. But I can't imagine, Margaret and I living on $58,400 at all, and staying on the side, if I didn't have taken some other measures to put money away. It's not a lot of money.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And some other notes that are somewhat related to this on my last slide is that now with the new 1040, we can no longer use the state tax return. It must be the federal 1040 only.
It's interesting.
Yes, so the state federal 1040 only now, because they're requesting that you use the federal adjusted gross income. You can no longer use your state income.
Is there another slide?
Yes, there's one last slide.
So did it used to be that the state would make the determination for you based on the state income, or no?
You could go either way. You could use your state income or you could use your federal income.
Right.
Now it's required to use the federal only, no longer allowing for the state. And then Enhanced Star, which is unrelated to the senior exemption, I just wanted to mention that number went up significantly again this year to now 98,700.
What's it?
Used to be 94, or 92, excuse me, 92. And all the deadlines, or the deadline for all exemptions needs to be March 1st. So everything needs to be back to the assessor's office before March 1st in order to qualify for any exemptions. So,
Can we go back to the mailer?
yes,
Because I've talked to a few people in the community and they had questions about it. So
yes.
a lot of people are wondering, like, what is the purpose of the mailer? Is, you know, if I fill it out, am I, you know, like, why do you need this information? What are you going to do with it? Hurting myself by giving you this information because I'm self-reporting, like, oh, hey, I have like, you only have me listed 3 bedrooms and I have 4 bedrooms. So why do I want to tell you I have 4 bedrooms? My taxes are going to go. So those kinds of questions are out there.
Yeah, they are. So we're sending out the data mailer to verify your information, verify what we have for your home is correct, verify that you are the 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, you have a deck and a pool, you know, whatever it may be. We just want to verify that that information is true and correct. And going forward, we want to just keep maintaining a correct database at the bare minimum. We are hoping to get out and take some pictures of people's properties as well. We will knock on doors and say, hey, you know, we are from the assessor's office. We would just like to take a couple pictures of the outside of the home. If you want to invite us into the house, we would love to, but you're not obligated to do so. One of the other questions that I have been getting too is, are we using a drone to take photographs? We are not. Our department doesn't have one. We don't use one. So we are just taking pictures, you know, on foot. And anybody has.
And that's a requirement.
It
It's
is.
a state requirement.
It is a state requirement.
Say there is a building here and we are assessing this building.
Yes.
And in terms of whether or not you want the assessor to come in, one thing I always would say to people, especially when it was an open permit, I can guess. I can guess based on, you know, copper gutters, but I can also, you know, guess too high, perhaps. I mean, maybe it's better if you know, but it's definitely a choice, but I mean,
Yes.
we have to assess. So
Yeah.
with what tools we're allowed, you know, that we have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Does that help?
Yep. Okay.
Can I be more pointed on the question?
Yes.
Are you correlating that data with the building department?
We do have some, yes. We work hand in hand with the building department, absolutely.
So the data in that questionnaire is directly correlated with the building department on what they have for your certificate of occupancy.
We don't keep the certificates of occupancy. And, you know, there is work that gets done without building permits. So they don't always have up-to-date information, therefore neither do we. But we try to manage our database from what we are given by, you know, the homeowner.
But one thing, when I came on, it was Al Hammond with, you know, a lot of experience. And one thing Al would say, we don't wait for a CO. We see completion because a lot of people do not close out their permits for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
there's that. And then I noticed on my data card, just my years were wrong. So I have a deck, it says 2008, but I think, you know, I did it over this year. And I had a CO, but there were other dates that were wrong that I think will probably impact partial basement. I actually have a full one now. That will probably impact my value. It will bring it up. But it's also my fair share. It's my fair share of the burden of the tax.
But does it remove your certificate of occupancy because you corrected something and that wasn't on the original CO?
No, it is on the CO. I am up to date, but it just didn't get reflected. There are some gaps in the assessment database because we've had some personnel turnover over it's almost a decade since Al left, that we've had some churn in that office. So gaps developed. And that's one of the reasons this is being done now, is to sort of try to catch up.
But to what I think you're trying to say is, if we have listed 4 bedrooms, but your CO says you have 3, they'll see it in our database and then they'll say, oh, when did they add a bedroom? So we don't always, those sorts of things don't always get spoken about, but we do work very closely now. Mary Ellen sends us things, Blanca sends Mary Ellen things. So we really do, we try to work better as a team in that sense, because we are 2 separate
Right.
entities with two separate databases.
And when does this matter? It matters for assessment, but it also matters when you go to sell.
Yes.
So if you have work that wasn't, done with the benefit of clergy, then,
Comes out in the wash.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And that's actually where we're getting a lot of our information now, is from the building department, because people are selling the homes and, oh, we did add another 2 bedrooms or another bathroom, and their COs are not up to date. So
mhm.
they are now sending us more up-to-date COs.
What about the flip side, checking the veracity of the property card that they submit, property information card? So say if I have a 5-bedroom, it's only a 3-bedroom and
You have the phone number on there, I will call you and verify that information then, if you're making a drastic change, like going from 5 bedrooms down to 3, because that would be significant.
Maybe check with them and then.
no, but
Yes.
cross-reference and.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, but that's also what we've talked about, potentially doing an updated CO, local law upon transfer, that can help with a lot of this stuff and making sure the records are up to date. So,
That helps with assessment too, because if the record is up to date at the date of transfer, that sale, when it's being used as a comp, is now an accurate, for it to be comparable, you have to know that it really does have the 3 bedrooms.
yeah.
So that would really, that would really help.
I'm gonna ask
Fund transfer.
the other question that keeps bouncing around town. So if my assessment goes up, do my taxes automatically go up?
No. And I'm going to say no, because if everybody is going up roughly the same percent, and we're all still sharing that same pie, your slice of the pie is still going to be the same, it's just going to be redistributed differently. So,
Page did get updated to the website, the
Yes.
assessor's page of the website
Yes.
that talks about,
so there, yes, there
so it's
is,
a nice graph for people who need a visual.
yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
Great, terrific.
Judith, thank you very much.
Welcome, Judith. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. The agenda part of the meeting, we'll go around the table. Meg?
Okie dokie. So we've released 10 chapters of the draft comprehensive plan. There's going to be 11 chapters in total. The 11th one is forthcoming. And that chapter is just the implementation matrix, which is a summary of all the action items and their ranking as far as complexity goes of implementation. It also lists out who the responsible parties would be for each action item. And so all of the action items that are being recommended have been released with these current 10 chapters. There will be no new action items released in chapter 11. That's really a summary of what you're already seeing.
But we do have workshops that might,
Right. But for this current draft, all of the recommendations are out in the public. And I have had a few people ask, well, you have this land use and zoning chapter, and that is existing conditions. All of the zoning recommendations are made in their applicable chapter. So if there's any zoning recommendation relating to housing, it'll be in the housing chapter. So all the recommendations that are being made are out. They're in those chapters that are available to the public. So if anyone has questions about that, feel free to email or let us know. I just wanted to clarify that because people feel like there's going to be one final land use and zoning chapter with just zoning recommendations. This draft is not heavy in zoning changes. There are not a lot of significant zoning recommendations being made. So what's out is what has been recommended through the public workshop that's coming up on September 23rd. And, maybe new things will come up, things might be adjusted, but as of now, what's out is what stands. Chapter 11 should be released by September 15th, so Friday. We should have that implementation matrix, which will summarize all the action items. That should come out to everybody. And you can comment on the town website. There's a comment button. All the chapters are available. And at the bottom of every chapter, there's also a link for comment, just like in the previous chapters that were released. So I've seen a lot of comments so far, which have been good. And we look forward to seeing everybody at the open house.
Format for the 23rd.
So the 23rd is going to be it's going to start off with a presentation from BFJ. And then there's going to be stations all around. It's in the Legion, in the community center. So then there's going to be stations all around that have boards with all the action items on them for people to read and discuss. And they have about 45 minutes to do that. And then we're going to have kind of a public hearing where everybody can give us their input on what they've read and what they see. And so then all that feedback will be taken back from the consultants. And then BJ and I are going to stay later and just leave the displays up for people to come through and read. If they can't get there at 11 when it starts, then they'll have extra time to look at it and ask questions. And then what we're going to do is we're going to move all those visuals here into the boardroom so that if people want to come and read them, they can. They'll be up for people to see. We'll also have a comment box so people can write comments and leave them while they're looking at the displays.
We have a mailing, just to know, to every post office box going out to advertise the 23rd. I think that's going out Friday. Right, Meg?
Yeah, Friday the latest.
At the latest, yeah. And there'll be an ad in the paper this week and the week after. It's also posted as it should be, because it's the task force hearing, public hearing as well as a workshop. Yeah, I think that's all I have to add, yeah.
Yeah, that was what I had.
Just to address the elephant on the island. Is the number of slow down the plan signs.
Slow the roll.
We've said numerous times, we're not slowing down the plan, we're continuing the process. Public will decide whether or not comfortable with it to adopt it.
Yeah.
It'd be silly to slow down because we've been going.
Well, we got
on
to
and
this
on and
point.
on.
We got to a good draft.
And the other elephant in the room is, I thought we had discussions about signs on public property, but I guess we never came to a formal conclusion.
Of all the signs, I think the ones on the preserve lands, the ones that
Well,
were most
preserve land is-
bothersome.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think, oh, wow, it's, it's supposed to be preserved land and they're a political, but I don't think we can make a distinction
No,
as a town
yeah, and
board.
I think the next town board should address,
Right.
signs on public property. And also if they're gonna do, charitable signs, farmers market, cancer runs, this or that, political signs. You have to identify who you are.
Mm.
You can't just put a sign up to slow down the comprehensive plan, not identify who you are.
Same with the housing.
Same with housing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just my thought.
But I also, about the slowing of it, I have to say, don't really understand in the real data. I mean, data is data. Those are, but the slowing of it, this to me has reached a point where it's, here's the hippie comment, it's almost like organically happening. So, we got the draft is here, it's ready. What are we going to do with these consultants? Hang on for another 3 months and then we'll pay you? I don't know, just practicality wise. So this is the next step.
Right.
We do a public hearing, the CPT out, and we get comments from the public and we make those changes. And at some point, we then hand it over to the town board. It's just the next step. I don't know when it's going to happen. And then that happens and the town board reviews it. And then your next step is, well, somewhere in their SECRA, somewhere in their planning board of Suffolk County Planning Board. But your next step, our next step is to do public hearings from the town board's point of view to get comments. I mean, again, when will that happen? I don't know, but this just seemed to occur in a natural way or unforced way. So slow it, I don't see practically how we could do that without wasting taxpayer money yet again.
Well, there's no deadline on when it has to be approved.
Right,
But it has to
go through,
have certain steps happen.
yeah,
So in order for it to ever get to the town board level, the task force has to have this public meeting,
Right.
with this hearing portion. So that's just one more phase of the process. And so, whether it happens now or, this is the best opportunity for the task force to have it because it's the official first draft of the document. So we want to hear what everyone has to say. And then it gets revised. And then, when it's ready, then it would go to the town board and then the town board would start their official hearing process. So, the task force public hearing is kind of like a public hearing light. It's, not necessarily the meat and potatoes of the public hearings, but it's on this draft. It's this draft to get it to the next level of, you know, what public opinion states before it goes to the board, which is the primary reviewer.
And because in spite of our outreach, which has been good and extensive, and 3 years worth, the public hearing, this to me, the 23rd, with the mailer and every possible way of trying to get people to hear about it and come if they're interested. Those are comments that we maybe haven't heard yet.
Right.
And so, you know, that's important. I don't know why we wouldn't have done that now. Why would we have waited? So again, to those signs, like, why wouldn't we want to hear from the rest of the public that maybe are interested and we just haven't managed to get to yet?
Well, because this is a new format, you know, I mean, we haven't been able to have huge public forums in a public space because some of it was during COVID. And then with our workshops, it doesn't always work out that we get a broad spectrum of the public, but this is an opportunity. It's on a Saturday. It's from 11 to 1, and then we'll just have open doors from 1 to 4. So it gives people the whole day to try to come in and talk to us, to give their input, to see what's been happening.
Yeah.
And we don't have that many opportunities to do that.
Oh.
So this is a good chance for everybody to get involved.
My comments are twofold. Number one, now that the 10 chapters are available and there's minimal changes in zoning, rather than speak in generalities, it's time to look at specifics. Take a look at the 10 chapters that are now available. A lot of those chapters are, they're kind of no-brainers, so to speak. There's not a lot of, there's new information, there's a lot of updating of information, but they're not very controversial in nature. Where there is some degree of controversy, whether there are a handful of zoning changes, rather than talking about slowing down a process, let's look at the specifics of what's in there that might bother you, and pinpoint the criticisms, as opposed to taking a broad stroke and saying, let's slow it down for another 6 months. 1994 was 29 years ago. It's a long time. For those people that were under the thing of take this document, work off the 1994 document, line out. The island has changed over the course of 3 decades, dramatically. It would be a waste of time. All you'd be doing is lining things out, and I don't know, it would be ridiculous. The document needed to be rewritten and updated. And hopefully in future town boards, there won't be a 3-decade gap. That this is a document, a workable document that be worked on continually, not every 10 years, but updated continually. It's got to be the guiding force that drives decision-making and planning and where the town is moving over the course of the next 10 years and beyond. So I would like to nobody's looking to take credit. And, you know, this is, if it gets done by December 31st, great. If it doesn't, but I'm not for, when you have momentum, you try to build on momentum. And we have had that. And yeah, and there's been a lot of participation and a lot of good criticism. Mostly, for the most part, it's been constructive. There are a handful of people that may have other agendas, but you got to see through that. But there's still opportunity here, as the ladies have said. And I will say I don't know how they did it, but all I know is every day I walk into this building, they're here working on this thing. It has been a tremendous effort on the part of these two council people. I mean, and they have taken an undue amount of criticism. I love the presentation that the company that guided us through this process says. I thought it was great, and I think there's still an opportunity to improve the draft, and we have that opportunity. Whether it takes a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, beyond the 3 of us being here, fine. But let's get it right. Let's work together, and let's be constructive. Let's keep our comments. How can we improve it and make it a better document, and not just look to throw things in the way to slow it down. It's not about slowing it down.
Well, I think it's also important to remember that this document doesn't create legislation. You know, it's the town board's responsibility to create and revise legislation. This document is only supposed to kind of set the vision of what the island's looking for and to identify things that need to be investigated and need to be looked into further and may need to be addressed. It's not specifically supposed to tell you exactly how to address something, this is the solution. It's supposed to identify areas of concern or identify things that the island wants to preserve. So it's not meant to be a document that states specifically, you need to pass a law that says X, Y, and Z. It's meant to say, this is something that you're going to have to be aware of in the coming years, make this a priority to investigate. Because a lot of the recommendations on here are things that need a deep dive, and it's not something that this plan is meant to be doing. It's not something that it has a budget for, and it's not something that's in its real purview. So it's supposed to be kind of a broad brush and just let you know what to be aware of holistically as far as the island goes. It's not meant to be, specific in that sense.
Thanks, man. Good point.
The only comments that I would make is, one, I'm actually glad the signs are up because it's actually creating chatter. People come and
No,
ask
it's a
me,
good
like, what is
point.
a comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
You know, so they haven't been paying attention, so I get a chance to explain, this is what it is, come, you know, we've got this going on. So it's generating public scrutiny, and so hopefully it will, you know, drive more people to actually sit down, read it through it, and come to the, you know, the sessions that we have on it. The other comment that I would make is, we have a timeline that we just need to continue stepping through. But having been here, like we lived through, Jim, the short-term rental law for over a year.
Over 2 years, actually.
Yeah, it just, you know, so it takes time for us to do anything. So we'll have an open, you know, a public hearing at some point at the town board level. One public hearing isn't going to do it. Like, we're going to have more than one public hearing, and then there'll be modifications, and then we're going to have to decide whether or not, okay, are these modifications big enough that we now have to reset a new public hearing? So there's a process to be gone through, and it's not like this is government. So I think people are really super worried that we're trying to rush this through to the end of the year. We're just trying to keep stepping through the process and giving people a chance to come and to speak and tell us what they think about it.
Well, good points. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Jim? Capital planning I'm going to do next week. I was waiting for Jennifer's report. I meant she was away, so I've got her report now. Joe, I'm waiting for Joe on a couple of input items from him. WMAC, I'll surrender over to BJ and I'll comment, on anything that from last night's meeting. Very quickly, the three things I would like to comment on is Bill Zidek returned with his wife Meryl to Meshamek at a special event for Dr. Zidek, and he's been a backbone of this island. It was great to see him back here. He was back for his son's wedding, so that was a nice thing to see. Mike Scheibel and Bill and Mike and Sue Laspia, and all the old regime there. It was a really nice thing, and I take my hat off to the current leadership there at Meshamek. I think they did a great job. It was very informal. It was just a little luncheon at the visitor center in the new facility out front, but it was so nicely done. Peter Vilbig, again, Jim, great, thank you and the police department for inviting us to a very informal type of. As Peter steps down after 17 years of working with the department, it was nicely done. Really appreciated all the people that spoke and the comments that were received. I think Peter was very thrilled with the event. They'll have something formal for him at a later date, but great job in that. And then my last comment is on the 9/11 memorial last night, the fire department, hats off to you and the Legion, particularly the fire department. It's such an easy expression to talk about, never forget. But, I knew exactly where I was when Kennedy got assassinated. I know exactly where I was when the first tower was hit, or the second tower was hit. It was like yesterday, and it's now 22 years ago. But the pain that is felt, the lessons that needed to be learned are huge. Having been 29 years in the military and seeing, I was always blown away by somebody that won the Medal of Honor. I had one instructor in Officer Basic, a helicopter pilot, that won the Medal of Honor. And I got to meet him and talk to him, and I purchased his book that came out, and he's just such a hero in my eyes. And I think about 9/11. And I think that, when you saw that, what hundreds and hundreds of firemen, police officers went into to save human life, and to go up those flights of stairs, knowing that there's a good chance that they may not be coming down those stairs, they are all heroes. And we should never forget that it did change our lives forever as a nation. And it's something that I'm very thankful that the fire department here had that ceremony last night. It was beautifully done. And the one thing I do notice, though, is the age of the fire department. I'm saying, hey, listen, more than ever, we need to get younger people on this island to fill the ranks of the fire department, because there are a lot of people in the fire department that are my age and older. And, it's such a vital part of our community. First responders here on the island, the EMS, police department, fire department here are the backbone of this island. So, and we have some great people in all three areas. So thank you very much for having the service yesterday. Deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Amber?
Just two quick things. WQI met last week, and I think the takeaway from that meeting is now that we've upped the limits from 6,000 to 12,000 plus well relocation and pressurized shallow drain field, we're starting to see an uptick
And the tax thing, I think.
Yes, yes, the taxing. So we're seeing more applications starting to come in. So it's nice, because as I was looking at the numbers that were needed for the audit to close out 2022, I was looking at the number of applications given over the past few years, and it's up and then it crashed down, and now I think this year will be a good year. And then the other thing is we've been seeing, we're seeing it in the news, and we're seeing a little bit around town, an increase in either people coming down with COVID-19 or exposure to COVID-19. So we're working on an interim memo for our department heads on how to deal with it. But once again, for the public, we have a few able to get that many of the free test kits, but we do have some here for people who need them. They may run out fast, but also just remember to go to the CDC guidelines. The website is very good about when you're exposed or when you come down with COVID, what the current protocols are, because they kept changing during COVID. So if you want to know what the most up-to-date is, we're directing everybody to the CDC website. So that's all that I have.
Good. DJ?
Yeah, I might win the trifecta this week. So at WQI, also Kate Rossi Snook updated them, because they're the ones who funded her program. She came here, she went there. And I found out a little teeny bit of new information in terms of the scallops. Here, the scallop was a complete disappearance of what was seeded. That being said, there were no crushed or empty shells found. And I don't think I picked that up from when she came here. So there's some hope that they've moved into the eelgrass beds, that are around there, and maybe there is some survival. And the batch that was seeded in Cockles Harbor was considered to be a stronger batch, meaning ones that had survived previous die-offs. So from her conversation here, I was devastated. At the WQI, a little bit more hope. And they are.
The study would be to find them.
Well, that's a challenge. Snorkeling or scuba diving, it's hard to find these little.
And the water's been murky.
Yeah.
Just say. And then the other thing is, I don't know that this came out over loud and clear, that the hard clams are record-breaking numbers in terms of survivability and growth. I mean, they are thriving. So there's that. Now, CPF met yesterday morning. Is it just yesterday? Yes. And I'll try to find those notes. You can just get right here. And so the White acquisition, which is one of the newest one, trying to finish up with the planning board regarding landscaping. Trees were supposed to come down to make the road in, the access in, the CPF worked hard to not have those trees come down, but now the landscaping plan has to change because those trees exist. So they'll work on that. It was also mentioned that perhaps we can't name preserve properties that we purchased with Suffolk County after a person. They don't allow it. News to me. Anyway, so maybe a Jim Doherty trail as a way of honoring Jim Doherty. Financial, we have $9+ million in CPF funds, but behind the scenes, of course, in executive session, they're working hard to spend that. And also brought up at the CPF was the idea that there was a luncheon at Dickerson Creek for a long-term employee who was retiring, and that CPF really wants to be informed ahead of time if such a thing should happen again, which goes along with the archery as well. And I basically said, I'm hoping that I represented the feelings of this town board accurately, that probably wouldn't happen with this town board, that we feel that these uses are very passive. It's as if a family decided to have a picnic at Dickerson Creek. We don't necessarily require that they talk to CPF about their family picnic of 30 members of their family. And this little retirement was a similar thing. It wasn't anything, it wasn't an outlandish use of the.
Was the question of the use of the property or them not
The
being
knowledge,
told it
the
was
pre-knowledge, that we didn't get permission, I think, is it.
But
Or even just to acknowledge.
this is what I don't understand. All CPF properties are used for passive recreation. And if a picnic's not passive recreation, and we already defined that archery is passive recreation, I'm not sure what
Why-
is. And second of all, just what you just said, I don't think we need permission to say we want to have a picnic on their property. So maybe I need to have a meeting with the CPF to explain exactly what their role is and isn't.
Right.
Because it's this has come up numerous
It
times.
keeps coming up, and I keep on saying, this town board is not inclined. This is,
I don't think it's this town board, I think it's the role.
Oh, well, yeah, but another town board may, I don't know.
But it's also an unreasonable request.
Yeah.
Are you going to specify who has to ask permission and who doesn't? So if any member of the public wants to go and use CPF property for a passive thing, like they want to take a blanket and go sunbathe and get Lyme disease, then do they have to request permission from CPF? Or if you're going to go walk the trail, do you have to request permission? So it either needs to be defined terms
Right.
on a scale of things that require permission, but if it's purchased in conjunction with the county has a definition of what they consider to be passive recreation, and if the property is being used for any of those things, there should not be a need for additional permissions.
Right.
Because it is now owned by the taxpayers, by the town, by Suffolk County.
For the public.
So for the public use and for those defined passive recreational activities. So I don't see the need. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
Doesn't. So I hope that, this will kind of quiet
I think
down.
we should address it with them.
Yeah, but we also have our outdoor assembly permit process. So I would think anything that rises to the level of an outdoor assembly permit,
CPF land or other land. Yeah.
like that's where it would fall under.
Well, and that would be
The
any
review.
town-owned properties, which includes.
Right,
Right.
yeah, so I mean, don't we already have a mechanism in place for
We do.
large gatherings?
We do, and it's handled at this board level. Or it's actually pre-handled with a
Yes, some
little
don't.
working group, and then it comes, if it rises to this, it comes here. I think you're right, we do.
Yeah,
already.
so I feel like why create something new when we already have
New
something
layer.
existing?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. No,
What else, BJ?
WMAC, last night, it was, as Jim said, it was a long meeting. I don't want to say contentious, because that doesn't quite capture it. The topics were debated, and as they should be. These are not easy decisions. And when they come before the town board, we'll brief you, Jim and I. And this morning was Taylor's Island, which it is like a coffee klatch of old-time Shelter Island. I love that meeting. they are so good about keeping that building up to snuff, working with the building department when necessary. Their own volunteers do most of it, and then occasionally they'll hire out. They have some nice healthy balances in their foundation accounts, which is nice. Shelby, working with Shelby, she's moved some of the money over to class, so we're getting some nice interest now. There have been some complaints out there. There's apparently a repeat offender who does not leash the dogs, one of whom is a pit bull. And sometimes pit bulls just frighten people on sight. They might not be dangerous dogs. So that was another.
Somebody that lives out there, or they go by boat?
I'm not sure how they get out there. I don't know if they live there or if they drive there. I don't think they go by boat, though. And so she's been spoken to again, to please don't ruin it for everybody. It's nice that people can bring their dogs as long as they keep them on leashes. But if she keeps, or anybody, if we keep having dogs.
Is that one of the ones we have posted? No?
We don't have, I don't believe we have a leash for it, but it has to be under direct control.
Yeah, under direct control, yeah. Well, it's.
Running away is not under direct.
Exactly, in this particular moment with an encounter of somebody on the board, this person had a little trouble corralling the non-pity, the other one. So, that, and just, again, people, fear is fear, and, you're right? So, but hopefully it won't, this latest encounter will end that. And there was a little bit of a parking issue out there, but I think that the committee came up with a good plan to come up with these are people who are driving out there, parking, and perhaps even staying overnight on the island. So a placard to hang so that the people from Mashalmik who try to enforce the use or non-use of that road and parking will know that this person is legitimately allowed to be there, where they are. There's a fundraiser, Taylor's Island, this Friday at White Oak. Let me get the times. Did you have the times right there, Meg?
I don't. I had it, but
It's 5, I think it begins at 5 PM. Raw bar, stuffies, as we like to say from South Fish Market, and wine, et cetera. But if you go to the Taylor's Island website, I think it's there. Is it on the town website, Christina? Maybe we could do a little something on the Facebook and the Insta. Okay, thanks. Yeah, it is Club Coco.
Usually just here in the comment, we have a very good animal control officer.
I
If you
know.
want to.
I'm her best friend.
So if you need her to intercede in that.
Yeah.
She'd be glad to help.
Thank you. I will email Pat Hunt just to offer the service. All right. Thanks very much. I think that's it for me.
Stephen?
Just briefly, as you're aware, we reorganized code enforcement. And in order to make sure, complaints are assigned properly, tracked, addressed, and the complaints are informed, I really would love if we can put something out to the public that everyone go to the code enforcement page and use the online complaint form for all complaints. Now, if you don't have a computer, you can call up, any department. I'm sure I would advise that they help that person or they fill out the form for them based on the person's information. But we really need to get organized here, and we have to make it clear that all complaints have to go through the online complaint system.
Okay.
Yep.
Amber, you have anything? Christina, you have anything? Okay, anybody in the Zoom audience have anything? Pam?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to congratulate everyone who's worked on the comp plan and that you got it to us more than a week prior to this public hearing coming up. I think that's really great. And it's good to know that we'll have that implementation matrix thing that I had requested 2 weeks ago, and that'll be done so that we will get so I'm assuming that at that point, the draft will be complete, correct?
yes.
Yeah, okay, great. And then the public hearing on the 23rd that you have scheduled for about 45 minutes of time. Are we expecting that that's going to be adjourned rather than closed so that the public hearings that are held for the town board will be renoticed in the paper?
Well,
Separate noticing.
No, we haven't even noticed for the town board.
no, so Pam, it'll depend on how the conversation goes. But no matter what, the town board will have to do a whole new hearing process. So they will renotice everything. Once the document gets handed off to the town board, then it starts fresh with the town board. So then they would have to renotice.
And I don't-
Stephen can fill in the process.
Yeah, I just-
Wait, before you do, but let me also, it says 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the flyer and the ad that's going, or later if needed. So,
No, I know, but the breakdown, BJ, the breakdown in time indicates that it's going to be from 12:15 to 1 o'clock for the public hearing. And then after that.
it says
from
or
1 to
later or
4,
if needed. That's the important piece of information I'm giving to you.
I know what you're saying, because I know that you wanted to then talk to people for another 3 hours in the afternoon after that public hearing was either adjourned or closed. That's my question, because that's. how
No, I
see
don't
the
think it will
slotting.
be if people are there. That's what I'm saying. I think we'll go
Yeah,
as long
okay.
as we can. That's the goal.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, okay.
you know,
No,
and
I just wanted to know about that. And then I would like to address something that happened at the WMAC meeting last night that I found a little disturbing. I'd really like to understand the role of the town board liaisons to these councils, and they're advocating for applicants. Very questionable and inappropriate. I really found that I didn't like that the liaisons were sitting at the same table as the applicant. I was not fond of them making suggestions on how the WMAC should have approached the project that we are discussing. And I'd like to see that kind of behavior to cease and desist, honestly.
Noted.
So noted. There was no other place to sit, by the way, Pam, but we were at the firehouse, both BJ and I. We requested that the meeting start a little bit later than 6 o'clock because we felt it was important for us to be there and wanted to be there. So when I came in the room, that was, and you need a table to sit at to write notes. So that's the only table available. I walked in, it just happened to be, Jack Costello happened to be to my right and BJ was to my left. In terms of the comments, I won't even, I will, I don't, won't address that publicly again. If you want to talk to me about that I would be happy to discuss that with you.
I'd be happy to have that conversation. I just think that the optics look really bad, and I think that some of the things that were said were advocating for the applicant, and I find that offensive. It's not.
Since you brought it up, I do, let me.
I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, and since you left it at that, I have to respond to that. What was suggested last night was when we went out there as a town board with the committee, with the WMAC committee, we went out there, I heard some comments about wanting to get some type of resolution to this issue. And that the sooner the better. And this was coming from members of the committee, not from BJ and I, but I overheard those. I think we've spent a lot of time on these applications, and particularly this particular application. And we were trying to improve, my comments last night were about improving communication, coordination, and what the needs are. So that the committee needed at the end of last night to be able to articulate with Christina to get the message to the applicant exactly what needed to be done for this to be heard and voted upon, not approved, voted upon. So that we nailed it down to 3 basic things. And those 3 basic things, you were there for it. It was the survey that needed to be completed because they weren't satisfied with any survey that was conducted, the hardship letter which we received, and the other thing about possibility of separating the dock issue from the walkway and the catwalk. So those are the things. And then, of course, the height of the dock came into play last night, which had never been discussed before, about going from 30 inches to 36 inches, 2.5 feet to 3 feet. My comments last night were about sea rise and the fact that when you build a dock, you are building a dock not just for 2023, you're building a dock for the next 25 to 30 years, hopefully. And that with sea rise, maybe just like we do with bulkheading, we always think about increasing the height of it because of sea rise. But I didn't come across, by the way, in favor of the applicant. What I wanted to do is to expedite and get this vote to a vote and to satisfy, and by the way, not looking for blame here and who's to blame and who did what they were supposed to do and didn't do what they were supposed to do. My goal last night was to pinpoint exactly what needed to be done between now and our next meeting to have that material available for a vote. If you misinterpreted it some other way, I'm sorry about that. That's all I have to say.
Listen, I'll just say, let me just reply to that. The fact of the matter was the applicant was asked for two of the things that a month ago, prior to last night's meeting, and came to the table empty-handed. So, who's trying to move things along? I'm wondering why the applicant's not doing a better job on their side of this
I
application.
couldn't agree with you more, Pam.
And-
I said that there's plenty of blame to go around, including the applicant, but as far as I know, the hardship letter, according to the chairman, had been received the next day after it was requested. Now, that's what John said.
We know when the
I
hardship
think-
letter came in.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
all right.
don't want to get into particulars on the project. I know, Mr. Supervisor, this is getting out of control a little bit, but,
Yeah, I was,
No,
gonna
but
say,
so-
I kind of had the same, I attended about an hour of the meeting. I actually did have a little of the same impression as Pam did, that you were advocating. So I think it's something to consider going forward.
All right.
All right, I'm just gonna finish on the note that I was at the meeting too, and I didn't see anybody advocating. I thought that my take was the two liaisons were trying to get this process to continue moving forward. Seemed like we keep stalling, and the impression I got was, let's get this thing done, that's all.
Refer to the town board, yea or nay.
Yay or nay, yeah, exactly. Okay, anybody else have anything?
Wait, Jerry, I just wanted, just for clarification on the comprehensive plan process.
Yes,
So if the town board was writing the comprehensive plan, they would have their own public hearing and move on or whatever. But since the town board here delegated it to a special board, the special board has to have its own public hearing before it can issue a resolution to recommend the comprehensive plan to the town board. So that's a condition precedent to getting it to the town board, whether it's one public hearing, 2, 3, whatever it's needed. But at the end of that process, after those hearings conducted by our special board, then they have to issue a resolution recommending it to the town board. And once the town board gets that recommendation, the town board has 90 days to have a public hearing on that comprehensive plan that was recommended. So, and then once it's received, again, you have 90 days to have that public hearing. It has to be within 10 days' notice. So you have a 10-day notice period upon receipt of the recommended comprehensive plan from our special board.
Can I ask a question? 'Cause since we have the comprehensive plan task force and we have the comprehensive plan advisory committee, which board are you referring to that is making the recommendation?
The task force. So
Okay, just to be clear, just want to understand that, because
but in my mind, they're almost one and the same, right? Is that how it? I know the task force is smaller,
Right.
subset of,
No.
no?
No, so the task force is established to head up the whole project, and they're in charge of the document. The comprehensive plan advisory committee is advisory to the task force.
Okay.
So like,
The
you
voice
look
of
at
the
the
public.
hierarchy, it's the town board, they delegate the task force, then the task force appoints the CPAC to help them do their job.
Okay,
That's the jellyfish of organization.
all right, so yes, task force.
and here's a silly question.
I just,
When it's
I want to
advertised,
see that resolution.
when the
Yeah, I was gonna
public
say,
hearing is
yeah, double check
advertised,
that.
do we have to publish a whole comprehensive plan in the advertisement?
No, you can't. That's.
I know you can't, that's what I'm saying.
You give 10 days notice and you say a copy of the comprehensive plan
Is available.
Clerk's office, or the library, you know.
But if you could check that, just so we make sure we do it right.
Yeah, Christina, we got to pull that reso.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm going to make a motion. We go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations and the employment history of an employee. A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thanks, everybody.